The New York Times has a piece by John Schwartz today basically asking the question, not does climate change cause hurricanes, but how much worse does climate change make hurricanes? How much does it increase the severity? So maybe you could answer that question for us from a scientific standpoint tonight.
Yes, I mean, in fact, some of the best meteorological scientists who study hurricanes, people like Joe Bastardi, are calling the articles like we see in the New York Times climate ambulance chasing. In other words, every time there's a bad storm, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the media dredge up usually the same scientists and the same claims that somehow storms are unprecedented, that we've never seen this before. One of my favorite media techniques, Liz, and they did this with the Amazon fires recently, is they interview someone who says it's the worst I can remember. Well, you don't need a memory to know that. And if you look at the facts, Hurricane Dorian, even now, is still only in a three-way tie for second place in terms of strength. It is ninth place in terms of pressure. It's the 35th Category 5 hurricane we've had in the Atlantic Basin in the last 59 or 69 years. So it's not at all unprecedented, unusual. Yes, it's a big bad storm. It was a Category 5. It's probably devastated the Bahamas. We're just getting aerial shots out of the Bahamas now. We don't want to minimize it, but to sit here and say it's getting worse is not true. Even NOAA issued a statement about a week ago saying there's no evidence that climate change, in quotes, is affecting hurricane strength. In fact, there's a decline, a slight decline in landfalling hurricanes since the late 19th century or 1900. And that's according to NOAA. So that's pushing back on the New York Times.
Right. And NOAA, of course, is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, notoriously liberal organization, government-run organization. Here's the argument that's being made, though. This is what the climate ambulance chasers, you call them, this is their argument that climate change has made these hurricanes more severe. They say it's because of the heat of the ocean. They say 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gas emissions is stored in the ocean, and that increased temperature in the water leads to increased severity of these storms. Is that true or is that false?
No, in fact, people like meteorologist Roy Spencer, formerly at NASA, have taken these kind of claims head on. You only need a certain degree temperature in the water to form these hurricanes. In other words, warmer water does not make the hurricane worse. There's a point where it just doesn't matter. The hurricane's only going to get as bad as it's going to get based on water temperature. But the New York Times even goes a step further, and here's where you know where the con is coming into this. They claim that the slow movement of hurricanes is now the result of climate change. In other words, Harvey stalled over Houston, gave them a huge amount record rains. Dorian stalling over the Bahamas. So the New York Times is now transferring that argument of temperature of the water to, well, it's causing the storms to slow down. And the New York Times article by Schwartz actually points to studies that support this. I clicked on the link in the New York Times article. It was a study from a few months ago. And this is the whole trend, Liz. No, after the fact, they come up with a theory that would explain whatever happened and say it's climate change. So now the new theory is because of Harvey, oh, well, now we expect all the storms to slow down because that's due to climate change. They never predicted that ahead of time.